Okay, nice to see you all here. And I'm here to present our report about fraud and undeclared work and exploited workers, and what kind of impact it has on the work environment in different industries. I'm Monica Kaltenbrunner, working at SAWEE, and I'm the author to this literature review. And the background. As all of you know, it is a big problem with fraud and undeclared work or work-related crime, whatever you want to call it. It's not a uniform definition that everyone uses, but this is what we used here. I'll get back to that later. It is a growing issue worldwide on different levels. It's both problematic for the state, for companies, and for individuals. And for the individual worker, it seems as working in this kind of setting leads to a poor work environment and often being exploited. So it is a problem. And the aim with the literature review was to identify and analyze existing scientific studies and grey literature concerning fraud and undeclared work and how it affects the work environment in different industries. As I said, it's a literature review, and I just want to say that when we conduct our reports, we conduct them as they were a scientific study. For instance, we always have a peer review on our reports. And as you can see, the top bullet point we use in this report, I included at least 3 databases where I searched literature in. And we included scientific studies and grey literature, and they were published between 2013 and 2024 from EU, Norway, and Canada. And the reason why we included Norway and Canada was the similarities in different kind of ways with a lot of countries in the EU, and therefore we included them. And this report has mainly, to a large extent, the employee perspective. So literature included are, to a large extent, the work environment is reported by the employee. I'm not going to go into this. As I mentioned earlier, we call it different things: work-related crime, workplace crime. We included different kind of terms when we did the search, and we included literature where it was obvious that staff being exploited, where it was described that they worked more hours than allowed, more days in a row than allowed. So we included these kind of studies. 33 scientific studies were included and 6 reports. And the industries represented in the report is land-based industry, hotel and restaurant, health and welfare, domestic work, construction, vehicle and transport, and the cleaning sector. The participants in these studies were both men and women. Sometimes they didn't mention how many women, how many men. Some studies doesn't even mention the age of the participants, but both men and women were represented, and the age between 18 and 68 years. And most of the participants in the study came from originally from Central and Eastern Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America. The result. overall, the result shows that fraud and undeclared work often have a negative impact on the work environment. And this kind of work often involve exploitation of workers. And the workers are often migrants. And to be working in this kind of setting, it seems especially in the male-dominated industries, it is leads to an increased risk for being in safety hazards and other risks as well. I'm going to get back to that in another slide. Well, we looked into the result and we divided it into job demands and actually job resources, and we did find some challenges. The job demands we found was that the workers mentioned that they had high demands. For instance, they report high workload and working in a high work pace, with a high work pace, and working long days and more hours than allowed, more days than allowed. And often these workers received the most physically demanding tasks, and often they also were put in situations that was a risk, safety risk for them, especially in construction, I would say. And they also mentioned low control and low support. They didn't have any influence over how to work and when to work and what to do. They were just told what to do, and if they didn't want to do it, then they lose their jobs. And low support, well, the employer who would just say, if you don't want to be here, you can just go. No, they didn't. Most of them didn't feel that they had support from their employer. Oops. Harassments and threats was also mentioned. Threats of, as I said, losing their jobs if they complained. So no one complained about working conditions or work environment problems because they risked to lose their jobs. And harassments, men and women was harassed due to gender, due to appearance, race, different things. And a challenge, this was mentioned in the construction industry, the language barrier, and it was connected to safety issues, because it was a problem where workers could not read the safety instructions, could not read how the machine worked and how to handle the machine. So that was a big problem. And although there were colleagues who could translate, no one was really sure about the translation. Was it correct? What kind of information was passing? So although there were actually employers who wanted the workers to know how to handle the machine, to know the safety instructions, and some of them actually printed out the safety instructions in different languages to be more assured that the workers were following the safety instructions. 5 minutes. Safety challenges. It was mentioned in the construction industry that it was limited or no access to PPEs, and the employees was considered to pay for their own training and safety equipment, and as you probably know, the salary is quite low for these kind of workers, so I presume they can't really afford it. Employees and employers had negative attitudes towards following safety instructions. For instance, it was mentioned that some didn't want to wear helmets because that's not the way the macho culture, probably. They didn't want to wear helmets. And another problem was also that many workers didn't have the experience from the construction industry, so they couldn't foresee safety hazards at the site. So that was a problem. An employer's negative attitude is connected to that. For instance, they had to pay for their own safety equipment. They didn't really care. Job resources. Actually, there were job resources mentioned, and this was mostly mentioned in the female-dominated occupations, land-based industry and domestic workers. Some of them said they had support from the employer and they could influence at work. So, for instance, they could negotiate about their salary, they could negotiate about when to work, how many hours to work, when having days off. And support, some of them mentioned that if they wanted to run an errand, they were allowed to do this. And actually the employer helped them to run the errand. They lended out the car, or they drove them to the city center to buy some groceries or whatever they wanted to do. And the large one, belonging and sense of meaning and job satisfaction, this was mentioned in the domestic work where people took care of children or older adults in a family in their homes. They perceived that they had the job gave them a sense of meaning, and they felt job satisfaction when doing this work, and they felt a belongingness to the family, and it was a connection created towards the one they took care of, and this made them very satisfied about having this work, because they felt that this work was important. They felt that the family were depending on them and that their work was something that was appreciated. And therefore, even though they knew they were exploited, they knew their salary was way, way, way too low, and they had to work during the day, and during the night they were expected to take care of the child or the older adult. And they did, and they worked a lot. But although they were very happy having this kind of job. And I think my reflection about this is that to combat work-related crime or fraud or undeclared work, especially in this kind of industry, I think it's a challenge, because persons who work here, some of them, not all of course not, some of them are quite happy having this work and satisfied with it, which makes it difficult to detect, I think. I don't know. This literature review is one of few that focuses on work environment and from an employee perspective. And therefore it's an important contribution. And in the future we need more research about fraud and undeclared work, or whatever you want to call it, and the work environment. We need to focus on current challenges, and we need to also compare different groups, because as I mentioned, in the construction sites, it was it was safety hazards, and in the domestic works there were other issues. Following changes over time, I know it's really difficult because of the nature of these kind of works. So yes, it is difficult to do, but it would be good to do. And we have actually two reports. It's the literature review I've just told you about, And we also have an interview study where work environment stakeholders have been interviewed about their knowledge and experience about work-related crime. So have a look at our webpage to read more. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.